وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. Now, we continue with our study of Jawami Al-Akhbar, the Sheikh Abdul Rahman ibn Nasir al-Sa'di alayhi rahmatullah. We have reached Al-Hadithu Al-Ishrun, or the 20th Hadith, which comes عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يقبل الله صلاة أحدكم إذا أحدث حتى يتوضأ متفق عليه. That is narration which is agreed upon by Bukhari and Muslim, mentioning that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Allah will not accept the prayer of one of you who nullifies his wudu until he renews his wudu, until he makes wudu. Now, the Sa'di says, يدل الحديث بمنطقه أن من لم يتوضأ إذا أحدث فصلاته غير مقبولة. This narration indicates, by way of what it explicitly states, that whoever has not performed wudu after having done a nullifier of wudu, then his prayer will not be accepted by Allah Azza wa Jal. غير صحيحة, meaning the prayer is not sound, it is not a correct prayer. ولا مجزئة, and it would not have fulfilled his obligation of making the prayer. Now, I mean, if he prayed a prayer like that, that prayer would still be due upon him. He would not have fulfilled his obligation. وَبِمَفْهُومِهِ, and this is what it explicitly states. As for what we can understand from the narration as well, أَنَّ مَنْ تَوَضَّأَ قُبِلَتْ صَلَاتُهُ, is that whoever does perform wudu, then his prayer will be accepted by Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. أي مع بقية ما يجب ويشترط للصلاة, meaning as long as he has wudu, in addition to all of those other things that are a condition and that which is a necessary element of the salah. As long as he has these necessary elements, like tamyiz, like al-aql, like facing the qibla, and all of those things that are conditions for the validity of the prayer, and from that is the wudu, then as long as he has done all those things, he's going to have a sound and valid prayer. لأن الشارع يعلق كثيرا من الأحكام على أمور معينة نعم لا تكفي وحدها لترتب الحكم. He says, because the legislator, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, he has connected many rulings in our religion to affairs that are very specific affairs, which one of them alone will not be sufficient. And this he's commenting upon why he said ma'a baqiyat ma yajib, right? As long as the person, he has, in addition to the wudu, the other things that are obligatory and a condition for the validity of the prayer. And this is because Allah Azza wa Jal, he has connected many of our rulings in the deen of Islam to specific affairs, which one of those things by themselves does not necessarily mean that you have the thing that it is a condition for, right? For example, wudu is a condition for the salah, but just because you made wudu, it doesn't mean that you're praying right now, right? You're not praying until you have all of the other things that go along with the salah. And so, if a person, mathalan, performs wudu for the salah, and then he stands up to pray, and he prays without covering his awrah, he doesn't cover the awrah, right? Well, the awrah is a shart min shurut salah. It is a condition from the condition of prayer. So therefore, just because you made the wudu doesn't mean that your prayer is correct if you have not done all of the other things that will make the prayer correct. It's clear? You understand that, right? Yeah. All right, so he says that نعم حتى ينضم إليها بقية الشروط, until the other conditions, the remaining conditions are connected to it. حتى تنتفي الموانع, and until the preventative factors are removed. هذا الأصل الشرعي, this is a legislated principle and foundation which is agreed upon between the people of knowledge. لأن العبادة التي تحتوي على أمور كثيرة, because you have certain acts of worship that they combine or they contain inside of them multiple issues, right, that would make the salah sound and correct. There are multiple things that have to be present in order to make that salah sound and correct. So acts of worship that are like that, such as, for example, prayer, لا يشترط أن تجمع أحكامها في كلام الشارع في موضع واحد. He says that then the speech of the legislator, in explaining this principle that we just explained, right, If you just have one of those affairs, then you do not necessarily have the thing that is a condition for. This is what a condition is. A condition is that thing that its presence does not necessarily necessitate the presence of the thing it is a condition for. However, if it is absent, then the thing that it is a condition for is not there. Right? You got it? So he says that rather يجمع جميع ما ورد فيها من الأحكام. Rather, all of the things must be combined. It must be brought together in order for those rulings to be established. فيؤخذ مجموع أحكامها أحكام من نصوص متعددة. So it is not enough, for example, that you merely take one text. You merely take one text, and you're going to base the entirety of the rulings of that thing based upon that one text. Rather, you must bring all other texts together and look at them in light of one another in order to understand the rulings of that particular affair. Right? Like, for example, this hadith, we have one hadith right here in front of us, and this hadith that speaks about one aspect of the prayer, and that's wudu. Right? So you cannot, therefore, understand everything that is connected to the prayer based on this one hadith. Rather, you're going to need all of the other narrations that speak about the salah in order for us to understand fully the ahkam of salah. Now, he says, and so therefore, هذا من أكبر الأسباب لوقع الفقهاء علوم الفقه والأحكام. And this is from the greatest means which the fuqaha, the jurists, used to implement or to establish the rulings of fiqh and its sciences. وترتيبها وتبويبها. And they are able to arrange them and chapterize them. Section them off one from another. وضم الأجناس وأنواع بعضها لبعض لتقريب على غيرهم. And in order that they can bring the affairs that are connected one to another, like you mentioned the ajnas, for example, everything connected to salah, everything connected to wudu, everything connected to ghusl, everything connected to hajj, connected to fasting, and like this, these are ajnas. These are various categories of ibadat and various types. They all have to be brought together in order to make it understandable for the one who is studying, or the one who is reading, or the one who is a beginner student of knowledge. فَلَهُمْ فِي ذَلِكَ الْيَدْ الْبَيْضَاء. And so they, the scholars, they have brought together miraculous affairs as relates to this. For جزاهم الله على الإسلام والمسلمين خير الجزاء. So may Allah Ta'ala reward them, reward the ulama and the fuqaha on behalf of Islam and the Muslims with the best of rewards. وهذا الأصل ينبغي أن تعتبره في كل موضع. And so this asl that he mentioned, meaning that it's not sufficient for you to have one text and now you think you understand everything that has to do with that subject matter. Rather, you must have all other texts together, and you must bring other texts in order to understand it correctly. He said this asl, you should consider this and hang on to it in every subject matter or every science or field you intend to study. Not just salah, everything, whether hajj, whether umrah, whether this one or that one, jihad, and so on and so forth, the ahkam of marriage and divorce, and all the sciences of the religion are similar. هو أن الأحكام لا تتم إلا باجتماع شروطها ولوازمها وانتفاء موانعها. And it is that rulings are not set in order, not complete, except by way of bringing together all of the conditions, all of the necessary elements of that particular affair, and the removal of preventative factors. والحدث يشمل جميع نواقض الوضوء. When he says hadath, that the salah, Allah will not accept the prayer of one of you who does a hadath until he renews his wudu. Al-hadath, this is inclusive of all of the nullifiers of wudu. Hadath is everything that would nullify the wudu. So from this angle, we have al-hadath akbar, you have major impurities, and then you have al-hadath al-asgar, or minor impurities. You have major impurities, those things that would necessitate ghusl. Right? Certain things would necessitate ghusl. And then you have other affairs that simply necessitate wudu, or perhaps istinja and wudu, and like this. Right? Those are ahdath. Naam. And so he says, so what enters into that is al-kharij min as-sabilain, anything that comes out of the two passageways, meaning urine or feces. If a person urinates or a person defecates, and then of course they have nullified their purification. Similarly, gas. If a person passes gas and the gas comes out of the back passage, then this is a nullifier of the wudu. Now he says, and likewise, a known deep sleep, a known a naqid lil wudu, the type of sleep that would nullify the wudu. The sleep that would nullify the wudu, according to Ahl Ilm, is the sleep wherein if a person were to fall into this level of sleep, if something were to occur near by him, he would not know that it occurred. If something were to happen next to him, he would not be aware that it happened. This is the type of sleep that is a deep sleep that would nullify the wudu. As for a light doze, then it does not nullify the wudu. Lightly dozing does not nullify the wudu. For some of the Sahaba, while waiting for Isha, they will be sitting in the masjid, and some of them will be heard snoring. Some of them will be heard, there was some snoring coming from some of them. And when the Messenger of Allah came, alayhi salatu wasalam, they stood and made wudu without renewing, and made salat without renewing the wudu. They stood and made salat without renewing the wudu. So it's an indication that light sleep does not nullify the wudu. However, it is deep sleep which nullifies it. Now, والخارج الفاحش من بقية البدن إذا كان نجسا, and likewise, vile or those things that come out of the body, if it is considered to be najis, things that come out of the body that is fahish, that is a vile affair, if it is najis, such as menstrual blood of the woman. Menstrual blood of the woman is something that obviously would nullify her purification. وَأَكْلُ لَحْمِ الْإِبِلِ, likewise, there's the affair of eating camel meat. Eating the meat of camels nullifies the wudu, according to the jumhur, the majority of the people of knowledge. Now, of course, the Malikiyah, the Malikis do not hold that the eating of camel meat nullifies the wudu. However, the jumhur, the majority of the ulama, hold that it does. Likewise, lams al-mar'a li-shahwa, touching a woman with desire. Touching a woman with desire. And this is something which is agreed it is different about regarding or between the ulama. He said, lams al-farj bil-yad, and touching one's private part with his hand. Touching one's private part with his hand. وَفِي بَعْضِهَا خِلَافٍ, and in some of these affairs there is difference of opinion between the scholars, like that of touching the private part with the hand, as there's a hadith that indicates this. However, there's another hadith in which the Prophet was asked about it, and he said, what is it except another part of you? So therefore, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah mentions the reconciliation between these two opposing hadiths is that the touching of one's private part that would nullify the wudu is the touching that is done with desire. If it is just an inadvertent touch or what have you, then it would not nullify the wudu. Allah Ta'ala knows best. Now, and likewise, the affair of touching the woman, it is something which also there's khilaf between the scholars about. And we're going to mention from the Kalam of Shaykh Ubaid, the Qawl al-Raji, the stronger statement. Now, Asadi continues, فَكُلُّ مَنْ وُجِدَ مِنْهُ شَيْءٍ مِنْ هَذِهِ النَّوَاقِضِ لَمْ تَصِحْ صَلَاتُهُ. So all of those who have with them something from these nullifiers, then his prayer is not acceptable. حَتَّى يَتَوَضَّأَ الْوُضُوءَ الشَّرْعِيَّ, until he performs the proper legislated type of wudu. فَيَغْسِلْ الْأَعْضَاءَ الَّتِي نَصَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهَا فِي سُورَةِ الْمَائِدَةِ. So therefore, he must wash the body parts that Allah Azza wa Jal textualized within Surah Al-Ma'idah, and that is that one washes the face, and then likewise he washes the hands up to and including the elbows, and then he wipes over his head, and then he washes the feet. These are the body parts that are mentioned in the verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah. Now, he says, so therefore, he must do this ma'a tartib wal mawala. He must do this observing the tartib, the sequence that is mentioned in the Quran, meaning he washes these body parts in order, right? You don't start with your feet, then come back to the face, and then next thing you know, you go to the head, and then no, you must do them in the order that is mentioned in the Quran, right? And the order that's mentioned in the Quran is as I mentioned, the face, and what is included in the face is the mouth and the nose, right? And then from there, the arms up to and including the elbows, and then the wiping of the head, and then the washing of the feet thereafter. This is the order that's mentioned in the Quran. And as the Prophet said, alayhi salam, nabda'u bima bada Allahu bihi, that we begin with that which Allah Ta'ala has begun with. We start with that which Allah Ta'ala has begun with. And what he began with is that of the face. Now, in relation to the washing of the hands first, then this is in a case wherein the hands may have touched something that was filthy and the likes, then you want to wash the tool that is utilized for washing. You wash the tool that is used for washing, meaning your hands. They are the tool that is used for washing, so they must be clean. Now, similarly, when the person first wakes up, then he washes the hands first before going into his wudu. But what Allah began with in the Quran is the face. What he began with is the face. Now, so this is that which is wajib. So in addition to the tartib, right, I mean the sequence, you also must have what's called al-mawala. Al-mawala is washing the body parts closely behind one another. You wash the body parts of wudu closely behind one another. And what indicates a break in the continuity, or this mawala's continuity, what indicates a break in that is that if the previously washed body part dries before you wash the next body part, then in this case, the continuity has been broken. You would have to start the wudu over, right? So if, for example, you start in your wudu, and if somebody comes to the wudu station and say, hey, you see the Knicks game the other day? Oh, that was a good game. And he said, yeah, that was a good game. And you having a conversation with this person about the Knicks game. And you get distracted from your wudu until the body part you just washed dries. You cannot start back from that point. You would have to start over. You'd have to start over. Why? Because you have broken the continuity in your wudu. Now, أو يتطهر بالتراب بدل الماء عند تعذر استعمال الماء, or that one purifies himself by way of dust. This is called at-tayammum, as opposed to water, if one is excused from using water. Meaning, if there is an excuse or reason why you cannot use the water, such as Adam al-ma, you don't have any water. You don't have any water, and you have dust around you, and the prayer is perhaps about to go out. You have to purify yourself and pray. You can make tayammum. You make tayammum. If you don't have water, or you have a scanty amount of water, or if the use of that water would bring about harm, like sickness and the likes of this. Now, in this case, you can make tayammum. You can make tayammum. وفي هذا دليل على أنه لو صلى ناسيا أو جاهلا حدثه فعليه الإعادة. In this lies evidence as well that if a person were to pray out of forgetfulness, he forgets or he is ignorant regarding the fact that this hadith nullifies his wudu and thus nullifies his prayer. He forgot that he didn't have wudu, or he was ignorant that breaking the wudu would nullify his prayer. He must still make the prayer up. He must repeat that prayer. He must repeat that prayer, even if he is ignorant, even if he forgot. This hadith proves that. Why? Because the Prophet said, alayhi assalam, la yaqbalullah salata ahadikum ahdatha, that Allah would not accept the prayer of one of you who breaks his wudu, right? Hatta yatawadda, until he renews his wudu. And the statement is general. What is included in that is the one who does so knowledgeably. He has knowledge and he did it, as well as the individual who does so ignorantly or out of forgetfulness. However, we say in relation to the one who intentionally prays without wudu, on purpose prays without wudu, then some of the ulama hold that he has done a nullifier from the nullifiers of Islam. This is a nullifier from the nullifiers of Islam. Some of the ulama hold that. Why? Because he's making a mockery of the salah. He knows he don't have wudu, but he prays anyway. He's making a mockery of the salah. And to mock anything from the religion is a nullifier of Islam. However, the stronger viewpoint is that it is not a nullifier. He has not become a disbeliever on the account of that. However, he has done a major sin, and this is the viewpoint of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah alayhi rahmatullah. He has done a major sin, intentionally praying without purification. Now, and however, this that which we stated, that the person who does so nasiyan, out of forgetfulness, he forgot that he broke his wudu, and then he remembers later, or jahilan, he is ignorant, yani maybe he's a new Muslim and didn't know that passing gas is a nullifier of the wudu, and it will nullify the salah. Once he is informed, he would have to make that prayer up. Now, so what if it is a number of prayers? It's a lot of prayers that they did like this. Then what should one do in this case? Sheikh bin Baz, alayhi rahmatullah, he mentions that in this case, if it is too many to count, if it is too many prayers to count that they did like this, then in this case, they make sincere tawbah to Allah Azza wa Jal, and they seek the forgiveness of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, and they strive to increase in optional prayers, because the optional prayers make up for lapses in the obligatory ones. Now, aside, he says, and this, what he mentioned, is agreed upon by the scholars. فَهُوَ وَإِنْ كَانَ مُثَابًا عَلَى فِعْلِهِ صُورَةَ الصَّلَاةِ وَمَا فِيهَا مِنْ الْعِبَادَاتِ لَكِنْ عَلَيْهِ الْإِعَادَةِ لِإِبْرَاءِ ذِمَّتِهُ. He says, so the one who does this, right, the one who prays forgetfully or ignorantly without purification must make the prayer up. Now, even though he's going to be rewarded for what he did. He's going to be rewarded for what he did, yani of praying without the purification, out of forgetfulness. He'll still be rewarded for that because he actually performed an act of worship. But yani something was missing from its correctness. He says, so he's going to attain the reward, but he still must make the prayer up in order to fulfill his obligation of making a prayer. وهذا بخلاف من تطهر ونسي ما على بدنه أو ثوبه من النجاسة. This is in opposition to the one who he purifies himself but forgets that there is upon his body or upon his thobe, his garment, something from impurity. فإنه لا إعادة عليه على الصحيح. Then the one who does this, maybe he forgets that there's something on his garment, on his thobe, on his underwear, or on his body, or what have you, that is impure. Then this person, his prayer is correct, and he does not have to repeat it based upon the correct statement from the statements of the scholars. نعم لأن الطهارة من باب فعل الأمور التي لا تبرأ الذمة إلا بفعلها. Because purifying oneself, it is from those affairs which yani it is a must that one complete it, and he does not remove the obligation from himself unless he does it. أما اجتناب النجاسة, as for avoiding najasa, فإنه من باب الاجتناب المحظور, that it is from the perspective of avoiding reprehensible things, which if it is done in a case where the person may be excused, then he does not have to repeat it. And the case where the person may be excused is what? Ignorance and forgetfulness. So if a person forgot that he had these things upon his body or what have you, then he is excused and he would not have to repeat the action. Shaykh Ubaydi says an explanation, a commentary upon this section. هذه لفتة جيدة من الشيخ. This is an excellent exposition of the Shaykh. ذلك أن أحكام العبادات جاءت مفصلة وجاءت مجملة. And it is that some of the rulings of acts of worship, some of them come in a general way in certain texts, and in other texts they may come in a detailed way. Now, والحاذق, the one who is proficient and intelligent, and he is smart, he is the one and the one who desires safety and security for himself and a good ending. That he is the one who he brings all the evidences together. He doesn't just isolate hadith or isolate verses like this and think that he's arrived at what is correct regarding the issue. Rather, he brings together the adillah and he examines them in light of one another, and then he arrives at the correct position regarding any given thing. Now, he says, فَيَتِمُّ لَهُ إِسْتِنْبَاطُ الْحُكْمِ على أساس سليم. And so therefore, by way of that, he will have extracted the ruling based upon a sound and correct foundation. فَعَلَى سَبِيلِ الْمِثَالِ. So by way of example, first and foremost, يُشْتَرَطْ لِلصَّلَاةِ النِّيَّةِ. For prayer, there are conditions. There are 9 conditions of salah, right? And from the conditions of the prayer is a niyyah, the intention. Naam. And likewise, istiqbal al-qibla, facing the qibla. Was-sat al-awra, covering the awra. Wa-izalat al-najasa, the removal of filth from the garment and the body and the place of prayer. وَهَذِهِ لَيْسَتْ مَذْكُورًا فِي هَذَا الْحَدِيثِ. But none of these things are mentioned in the hadith. Only one thing is mentioned in the hadith, and that is wudu. That is wudu, right? So, this lets us know that this narration alone, one narration alone, may not necessarily give us everything that we need to arrive at the correct position and give us everything that we need to know about any given subject. Now, so all of these things, you won't find them in one hadith, nor maybe 2 hadiths. He says, bal fi ahadith idda. Rather, you're going to find them in a number of hadiths. You have to bring a number of narrations together in order to extract all of these things. فَلَوْ أَنَّ شَخْصًا أَرَادَ أَن يَسْتَدِلْ بِهَذَا الْحَدِيث عَلَى صِحَّةِ الصَّلَاةِ بِلَا سَتْرِ الْعَوْرَةِ. So, for example, if a person took the hadith that we just read, right, the hadith that Allah will not accept the prayer of one of you who has done a hadith until he makes wudu, and if a person takes that narration and says, okay, based on this hadith, I can pray without covering my awrah. Because this hadith don't mention nothing about covering the awrah, right? This will not be the correct manner of approaching fiqh, right? It will not be the correct manner of approaching fiqh. Now, he says that, then it's going to be said to him, istidlaluka khata ghayr sahih, that this derivation of a ruling that you just made is a mistake, is not correct. لأن الحديث في باب من أبواب الطهارة وهو الوضوء, because this narration only speaks about one of the issues of purification, and that is al-wudu. ثانيا, secondly, he says to the sheikh, he mentioned, meaning the author, Sa'di mentioned, inside of his speech, amongst the things that nullify the wudu, lams al-mar'a li shahwa, touching a woman with desire. Touching a woman with desire. But what is correct is that touching a woman with desire alone, just that issue alone by itself, is not from the nullifiers of wudu. Right? Touching your wife, for example, maybe you kiss her, maybe you hug her, or what have you, right? And these are things that are done with desire. But these things alone, in of themselves, don't nullify the wudu. Prophet ﷺ used to kiss his wives and go out for the salat without making wudu. Right? However, these things alone, like I said, don't nullify the wudu. سواء كان بشهوة أو بغير شهوة, whether it may be with desire or without desire. لكن من لمس زوجه بشهوة, but the one who touches his wife with desire is going to be in one of 2 states. He's going to be in one of 2 states. The first state, and يصب هذا اللمس استمناء أو استمداء, is that this touching brings along with it al-istimna. He may end up getting aroused and he ejaculates. So while the touching itself didn't nullify the wudu, then of course what came along with it did. Now his wudu was gone by way of that ejaculation. Or al-istimda, or he has that pre-seminal fluid. He touches his wife, he gets aroused, and he doesn't ejaculate fully, but the pre-seminal fluid comes. He says, "And can al-awwal," then the first case, the first issue, which is full ejaculation, that would necessitate ghusl. That would necessitate ghusl. It would be obligatory for him to perform ghusl before embarking upon an act of worship like the prayer, because this is janaba. Now he's in a state of janaba. Now, when kana thani, as for the second state, wherein the pre-seminal fluid comes, then in this case it would necessitate wudu. He would have to renew his wudu. والوضوء هنا أو الغسل لم يترتب على مجرد اللمس. But this wudu and his ghusl is not brought about just by the touch alone, just by touching. Rather, it's due to what came along with the touching. That which came along with the touching would necessitate either ghusl in the first case or wudu in the second case. Now, so as for the one who touches his wife and becomes aroused until he ejaculates, then we say to him, اغتسل, you must make ghusl. وعندما يمضي, but as for the case wherein he emits pre-seminal fluid, then we say tawadda, you must make wudu. And we add to what the Sheikh is saying here, in addition to that, as some of the other ulama mentioned, washing the private part. One must wash his private area and make wudu. Must wash the private area and make wudu. Naam, هذا الذي ينبغي التفطن إليه. This is what is proper, that it must be paid attention to. Naam, Allah Ta'ala knows best. We'll stop here بإذن الله تعالى. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد.